A product that got you covered from tanning, pigmentation, dullness, and aging, making you look brighter, shinier, healthier, and forever young. A single masterstroke to your daily dose of skincare, a sunscreen. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are here at the Holiday Inn Mumbai to celebrate the making, the designing of this one masterstroke by none other than our healthcare practitioners from all over India. Let me welcome everybody, all the respected healthcare practitioners and the doctors, the panelists for the ISF here today at the PRISM ISF Consensus Launch Shaping India's Sunscreen Science. Give it up for the beautiful audience that we have today with us, our doctors and the panelists and all the respected people here today as the guests at the Holiday Inn. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to celebrate a landmark moment in Indian dermatology, unveiling the nation's first evidence-based consensus on sunscreen use, tailored for Indian clinical practice. Now, to further ado, I would like to begin with inviting our General Manager of the Global Medical Affair, Glenmark, Dr. Dheeraj Doot, here on stage to address our audience and the set of panelists. Let me welcome Dr. Dheeraj Doot. Give a round of applause.
Thank you, Shivangi. It was a quite ravishing start, I can say, and it's a good start of the day. In fact, for the good start of the entire event. So, a very good morning to all our esteemed dermatologists and the heartful welcome for today's event, that is the Sunscreen in Dermatology's ISF launch. So, I am Dr. Dheeraj Doot, and it's my privilege to welcome each one of you for this momentous occasion. So sunlight, as we all know, that it's a source of light, vitality, and yes, even the joy also. It uplifts our mood and brings a natural goal to our health. From aiding in the vitamin D synthesis to improving the conditions like rickets, psoriasis, eczema, and the vitiligo. And the benefits of the sunlight are very well known. But as a dermatologist, you know the other side of this golden coin as well. So the unprotected exposure to this ultraviolet radiation, either UVA or UVB, actually can lead to the erythema, photoimmunosuppression, and the premature aging and even the skin cancer. So the prevalence of skin cancers are not that great in India, but eventually they are also on the rising trend. And nowadays, beyond UV, we now recognize the glowing impact of our visible light and the infrared light, which ultimately aggravate our photopigmentary disorders, which are so prevalent nowadays in our. And it is you, dermatologists of India, play a vital and the indispensable role. You are the educators, advocates, and the guardians of the skin, guiding the patients not just in disease management, but also in the preventive photoprotection, ensuring that the sunscreens use become an everyday habit. But choosing the right sunscreen, far from simple, as we all know. It must fit the patient's disease profile, skin type, climate, lifestyle, cosmetic preferences, and especially in Indian affordability. So this complexity demanded clarity, and then that clarity has now taken the form of that evidence-driven national consensus driven by you all. So to address this need, the Indian Sunscreen Forum actually embarked a mission with the two core objectives. The first is to create the expert-driven, evidence-based, and the practical recommendations for the sunscreen, especially in Indian patients. And the second, to raise the awareness about the sunscreen best practices among Indian healthcare providers and the consumers alike. So, our vision is basically the leading minds from across country which came together to form the Indian Sunscreen Forum, a first of its kind initiative bringing together the India's dermatologists to create practical, evidence-based, India-specific recommendations on the sunscreen use. So let me proudly acknowledge our founding members, starting with Dr. Malvika Kohli, Dr. Siya Srinivas, Dr. Abir Saraswat, Dr. Anil Ganju, Dr. Atul Kathed, Dr. Geeta Patel, Dr. Indrashish Poddar, Dr. Krupa Shankar, Dr. Mallika Sachdev, Dr. Maya Vedamurthy, Dr. Rajat Kandhari, Dr. Rajita Dami Shetty, Dr. Renita Rajan, and Dr. Sanjeev Aurangabad. Really, what a journey it has been. You know, we met last year in May only, May 2024. So where the idea become the reality. The ISF was born in a landmark physical meeting in Mumbai only. Then on 8th of August 2024, a comprehensive literature search actually began. And we charted out the every aspect of our sunscreen sciences. On 19th of August, our first questionnaire for the modified Delphi was circulated, and we invited the expert opinions also. In August and September last year, that is 2024, the two vibrant rounds of discussion, rich with the debate, the data, and the dermatologic insights. Later on 13th November 2024, we had a second round of Delphi questionnaire, which ultimately got finalized. We collected the response by 29th of November 2024, and on January 2025, that is this year, the panel reconvened virtually to refine and validate every recommendations. And finally, on 16th September 2025, the first consensus statement on the sunscreen led by the PRISM ISF was published, the first of its kind in India, in one of the most reputed academic journal, that is Journal of Cosmetic Dermatology. So now it's the moment of launch. So today, this vision takes the flight. So we proudly unveil the PRISM ISF. That's the practical recommendations for the Indians on the sunscreen use. So for this, I would like to invite all our esteemed panelists on the stage, one by one.
One shared mission: skin protection. We invite our doctors to sign the pledge. Please come on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Duth, for addressing the orders. Let me now welcome all the panelists here on stage with us. But before that, we'd like to have a context for all of you all here. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we know that today marks a significant milestone in the dermatological science in India with the launch of the PRISM ISF Consensus Practical Recommendations for Indians on the Sunscreen Use. This landmark document published in the Journal of the Cosmetic Dermatology represents the collective expertise of the leading dermatologists of India. So, ladies and gentlemen, this time we enlist and we invite on stage for registering the signatures and giving their audience and presence here with all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome on stage, starting up first with taking this pledge on to sun protection for every Indian. And I'd like to invite on stage Dr. Malvika Kohli. Doctor, you have to get a signature, and the signature will be revealed there on the screens. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Give a round of applause for Dr. Malvika Kohli to be on the board. And we'd like to present the flower bouquet to our first panelist. Dr. Malvika Kohli. To register our second pledge on the sun protection for every Indian, I'd like to call upon Dr. C.R. Srinivasan. Is Dr. C.R. Srinivas signaturing and registering the pledge for sun protection of every Indian. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. C.R. Srinivas. Let me now this time we call upon stage Dr. Abir Saraswat to register his pledge on sun protection. There you have it, Dr. Abir signing on the pledge. We would like to present the flower bouquet to Dr. Abir. Ladies and gentlemen, can I have a round of applause? Up next, let me invite on stage Dr. Anil Ganju. Dr. Anil to pledge the sun protection for every Indian today and onwards. There you have it. The sign of pledge. And we would like to present the flower bouquet to Dr. Anil Ganju here on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Doctor. You can take on the stage. Up next, we have Dr. Atul Kathad. Let's welcome on stage Dr. Atul Kathad. Dr. Atul Kathad here on stage signing on the pledge to protect our Indian skin. I'd like to present the flower bouquet to Dr. Atul. Give it a round of applause for Dr. Atul on board, ladies and gentlemen. Up next, joining the panels, we have Dr. Geeta Patel. Dr. Geeta Patel joining in the pledge panel and here to register the sign for the same, protecting our Indian skin from the innovation. Dr. Geeta Patel. And there you have it. Let's present the flower bouquet to our next panelist, Dr. Geeta Patel. Up next, let's welcome on stage Dr. Indrashis Podar to sign in the pledge for the sun protection. Ladies and gentlemen, calling up on stage Dr. Indrashis Podar. We'd like to present the flower bouquet to Dr. Indrashis. Let's now invite on stage Dr. D.S. Krupa Shankar to sign on the pledge at the panel's board. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. D.S. Krupa Shankar. I would like to present the flower bouquet. There you have it. Dr. D.S. Krupa Shankar. All right, joining in the panelists, we have our next, Dr. Malika Sachdeva. Let me invite on stage Dr. Malika Sachdeva. Sign in the pledge for sun protection. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Malika. We'd like to present the flower bouquet to Dr. Malika. Joining in our set of panelists. Up next, we have joining in Dr. Maya Vedamurthy. Let me invite on stage Dr. Maya Vedamurthy to sign in the pledge for sun protection here at the ISF. I'd like to present the flower bouquet to Dr. Maya. Congratulations to all our panelists. We have up next coming in is Dr. Rajita Dami Shetty. Let me invite on stage Dr. Rajita. Dr. Rajita to sign in the pledge for sun protection. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to present a flower bouquet. Thank you so much to the set of panelists that we have. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me have all of them in one line up so that to launch the new innovation on board. The pre-ISF consensus launch shaping India's sunscreen science. Brought to you by Glenmark, a new way for a new world. Let's have a photo op of all the panelists that we have. Can we play the AV again? We are really thankful and grateful to have our panelists on board with us today here at Mumbai. And this is the dedication and the passion that resonates with the innovations of today. It's the gesture and all the hard work of our healthcare practitioners that makes the world beautiful today and gives a future. Ladies and gentlemen, this is PRISM ISF Consensus Launch, Shaping India's Sunscreen Science. Can we have a round of applause for all our panelists, ladies and gentlemen? All smiles from all our panelists. That looks beautiful. Thank you so much, doctors. We also missed our three more panelists. The first, namely, is Dr. Rajat Kandhari, Dr. Ranita Rajan, and Dr. Sanjeev Aurangabadkar. So I'll also like to congratulate and thank our panelists who couldn't make it today, but the ones who made it today, thank you so much and congratulations for this big venture that we have on board today with us. This is also the launch of the website and continuing the engagement plans We've got the QRs printed on the tables right there in the papers. And if you scan the QR, you get into the website directly. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the website that is being launched today here at the board. And let me now continue with inviting Dr. Dheeraj Doot, our General Manager for the Global Medical Affair at Glenmark, here on stage to address us further.
So, to all our panelists, experts, for being this part of the official launch of this Wisdom ISF. So, what began as an idea to unify this expert opinion on the news for the Indian population has today taken a shape national framework, living document that will guide dermatology care, medical education, and the consumer awareness. So, as now we move ahead, time to delve into this science and the insights that shape this. With this, we will start with our this is the agenda. You can see on your screen. So, moderating this session, there will be a chief moderator, Dr. Malvika Kohli. And joining her are our distinguished panelists, will be Dr. Dr. Atul Khatri, Dr. Maya Vedamurthy, and Dr. Mallika. And under this session one, they will be discussing the importance of sunscreen every day in the medical, updated guidelines for the application and the and the recommended the quantities for the optimal coverage and the effect. Moving to the session 2 will be the optimizing sunscreen in dermatology, and with Dr. Malvika Kohli will be joining by Dr. Atis Saraswat, Dr. C.R. Srinivas, and Dr. Rajita Damis. And they will take us through the different types of the sunscreen available and their evolving formulation. And the pivotal role of the sunscreen dermatology, not only in dermatology, but even the aesthetic as well, particularly in pigmentation, acne, and the post-procedure care. And finally, we'll be closing our scientific agenda in third session, that is balancing efficacy and the safety of sunscreen in the special population. Again, with Dr. Malvika Kohli, there will be Dr. Anil Ganju, Dr. Geeta Patel, and Dr. Indrashish Poddar, who will be discussing on the sunscreen use in the special population, which includes the pediatric population, geriatric population, pregnant, and even the post-procedure patient, as well as the potential risk and the practical consideration that must guide our recommendation. So with this, now we will move to the scientific agenda. For this, I would like to invite Dr. Malvika Kohli on the dais, please. And with Dr. Malvika Kohli, I would like to invite Dr. Krupa Shankar, Dr. Atul Kathed, Dr. Maya Vedamurthy, and Dr. Mallika.
So, good morning, everyone. I cannot tell you just how wonderful it is to be here in this galaxy of star dermatologists on a sunny day amongst all of you out here. Thank you for coming and on bringing out the initiative on sunscreen usage and effective sunscreen usage. And I would like to really thank the Indian Sunscreen Forum for getting this galaxy together, taking this initiative, putting it together, getting us to sit down and words into thoughts, thoughts into action, and action into print. What better can it be to have something like this in print, which says practical recommendations for Indians on sunscreen use, a modified Delphi consensus by Indian Sunscreen Forum, that's the PRISM ISF. It is really a proud moment and a special moment, and it takes us forward in not only understanding science, understanding what we as dermatologists think, need, and what we should convey to our patients in uniformity. That really was the initiative. And with that, with huge congratulations, I would like to start our first session. As you know, we've got a great a set of questions as well as the best of science, brains, and talent amongst us today. So, with this, I would like to start with our first question. The only thing is, I'm going to go and sit there, and then I'll have to check the questions out from there. I'm just moving there. Can you move the, I think all the CVs are here? Yeah. Well, so that was just a, all our panelists, none of them need introduction. They're all here in front of you. I'm just going back to this. Yeah. Okay. Here I come. Yeah, so this is the issue. So I'm going to just turn around. Keeping my distance so that I can grill you. Let's start with the first question. Do you think sunscreen formulations should be routinely incorporated in the medical management of photoaggravated, photosensitive, and photopigmentary conditions? Let me tell you that this was the first question that we took almost half an hour to 45 minutes, if you remember, on a late night where we kept debating. We agreed to disagree, we disagreed to agree. There was huge amount of consent with lots of dissent. And then came the consensus. So starting with you, Dr. Maya, what is your take on, do you think sunscreen formulations should be routinely? I mean, if there is somebody who has a photoaggravated, photosensitive, or photopigmentary condition, they should use sunscreen daily.
I think we all agree to disagree to this statement for various reasons, because we know most of them have sensitive skin, atopic skin, and the ingredients in the sunscreen itself could be can be worsening their problem. So it isn't recommended to use sunscreen routinely in all cases of photoaggravated, photosensitive skin conditions.
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis.
But they should be using it.
But they should be using, not all of them.
So, Dr. Krupa, can we have one more mic, please?
Not a problem. Go ahead. Yeah,
Is something wrong?
yeah, thanks. There is no controversy in this. Unless the skin itself is oozy and wet and it can't hold the sunscreen in place, and there is a risk of introducing a secondary sensitization, there is no problem at all. All of us are practicing dermatologists know that if you see a photodermatosis, the first thing you will reach for is a sunscreen. It might be porphyria cutanea tarda, it could be anything. Before such time as you are convinced, even severe condition like xeroderma, you will use it. Xeroderma pigmentosum, or it may be a polymorphic light therapy, whatever it is, you will definitely use a sunscreen. There's no controversy here. The only concern over which we took a long time to settle it was that if it is the skin is photo distributed, like for example, you have an eczematous polymorphic light eruption or something like this, where the sunscreen cannot stay on, or if there's a risk of inducing a secondary sensor, those are all, like marginal considerations which will come up in an occasional or rare case where your common sense will guide you. So if you were to look at it, kind of one were to take a global view and think of this, look at this question without going into the nitty gritty of it, the broad answer is yes. That's how we all look at it.
Yeah. Just to add one more indication, I come from wheat belt. So Parthenium, using Parthenium would be one of the contraindications that I would not tolerate damage barrier.
I agree with Dr. Krupashankar. Of course, you initially want to wait when the lesions are oozing or infected, but at the end of the day, you are going to use that sunscreen. So that just becomes a blanket statement at the end. You can always start with your barrier clothes and your hats and caps and all that, or maybe a physical sunscreen to start with. Once you've healed the condition, it's going to be a yes. So I think at the end of this day, that agreement would come to finally we will, because it's going to aggravate our condition.
The other thing is that when you apply sunscreen, if the condition is actually getting worse, not just the photodermatosis part, but actually the inflammatory component is worsening, you can do something called as a repeated open application test. You all know how to do that. Take the test product from the elbow crease, apply it once in the morning, if need be twice a day, and apply a plain cream on the other side and see what happens at the end of 1 week. If the test site is inflamed, you know that the person has got a contact dermatitis that preceded the disease. You didn't induce it, because it takes you 3 weeks to induce a contact dermatitis. It's not going to present soon, so it will after some. But because of preceding use, if you give a contact dermatitis to a photo-aggravated dermatosis or a photodermatosis, if the condition doesn't get better but gets worse, all you have to do is a repeated open application test, ROAT. Very simple. That way you can sort out your problems. Every problem has a solution, just like every solution has a problem. That's the way to look at it.
I think we did agree that sunscreen, its photo protection in all other forms, gear, hats, caps, etc., and preferably a physical sunscreen. I think these were the 3 points we boiled down to, and that would be the take-home message, apart from everything else that was said. Let's go to the next question, which is balancing UVA and UVB in the Indian context. So we all know that UVA is more responsible for we all know that UVA is responsible for photoaging, primarily UVB, erythema and carcinogenesis. So how do we balance both? How important is UVB in the Indian context, which means that we all know our sunscreens are UVA protective and we are doing it because of photoaging. How much importance do you give to UVB protection in a sunscreen when you're recommending it to your patients? Dr. Malika?
I would want it to be broad spectrum, UVA and UVB in all my patients, because all components come into the picture in today's scenario. It's not only our computer screens. We have children who are working outdoors. We have people going to the gym, going to the pool. So it's a lifestyle now. So I think both the products should be incorporated in our sunscreen to give an overall protection. So I would suggest that I would both in my sunscreens.
Dr. Krupa?
See, if you drive to work. Hello. So when you drive to work and drive from work, if you are looking through the windscreen at the traffic stops, you will find lots of young men as well as mostly women with deep cut blouse and chappals sitting on the two-wheelers. See, in the olden days when people used to do hard work, they used to either, UVB is very easy to cut, okay? You just apply a cream. Phototherapy with UVB doesn't work if you are looking at narrowband phototherapy. If you apply a little bit some thick stuff like old fashioned power also, it will cut off the UVB from a broadband as well. So UVB protection is not difficult. The point is not difficult at all. And the point is most people are not aware. They are exposing themselves to this, all right? So if you just keep your eyes open on your way to and from work, you will see these people with lots of to direct sunlight. That sense is important, even in the urban setting. In the rural setting, people somehow take care, either through clothing or they work in the shade for a while, etc., and so forth, and so on. Or they'll have become immunologically hardened so that they don't produce a reaction because of extensive, prolonged, and there it goes on to photo aging. To what extent it's a concern is a different issue. But with the kind of population that we face in our practice on a day-to-day basis, if we were to look at where exactly do patients get sunburn, this is one. Two, to go on a vacation, all of you have had patients who had come back with sunburns from Goa, right? It's the sunburn capital of India. So everybody goes there, gets a sunburn and comes back. So you know UVB protection is important. So this is about what I have to say. It's there. Sunburn does happen. It is not a phenomenon confined to Caucasian skin or type 1, 2 or 3. No, it happens to us as well. It's a very common thing. So UVB protection. So to answer that question,
I'll just say it. Major concern is immediate pigment dark. That happens because of it. So we need to take care of that UVB thing.
Especially since our patients are so
Yeah,
fearful
so
of tanning.
fearful of tanning. They have been taking your for a while and immediate one day out the spoils everything.
Yes, the glass, those which they say when they travel in the car, they all say, no, I'm never exposed to sunlight, I just travel in the car. But, it blocks only UVA and UVB is allowed to pass through and disturbs their, so they need both protection for UVA and UVB.
So I think also I remember Dr. Srinivas mentioning when we had that during our consensus discussion that anyway our skins have melanin. Melanin itself is photoprotective and repeated exposure over years also has a photoprotective effect. So we are naturally also photoprotected over a period of time. We have to consider a lot of variation in environment and patient concerns. So it's better to have, whether it's rural or urban, I think in our mind we need to keep it in mind that both UVA and UVB both are important. I think that's, we should not neglect UVB is what we want to say. Now let's go to the effects of ultraviolet radiation, visible light, and infrared radiation on erythema and pigmentation. This was a review, and this was so based on this, we know that for blue light and indoor exposure, we have very limited evidence and high screen use. So tell me, preferentially, would you seek out a blue light or IR filter in your patients, or just would you prefer a broad spectrum sunscreen? Are you more a proponent for broad spectrum, or would you be tailoring it for somebody who spends 10 hours in front of a screen? You would say, okay, I would preferentially go for a sunscreen which has a better blue light or IR or HEV, high visible light. Would you prefer those kind of sunscreens, or would you just go for a broad spectrum? Do you think broad spectrum is adequate?
Even cooking ranges have a lot of IR, infrared radiation. And then all the gadgets that we use, like even watching a television monitor or a laptop, or even your cell phones are supposed to have blue light. Although there are articles which says it's not so damaging, but then we do see a lot of patients who are just exposed to these laptops and come back and tell us that they have increased pigmentation. So I think we need to consider a broad spectrum which covers both IR and blue light.
I think it's a sense of convenience. Rather than telling them that for this you do this, for that you do that, no one's going to do it. We, as it is, are having compliance issues with patients. They're not using adequate amounts, adequate periods of time. And I think it's easier just to tell them that this is what you need to do. It covers the whole spectrum of whether they're indoors, outdoors, on laptops, on their phones with LED lights. So it's more convenient, I think, in our scenario to have something which covers everything. That's where the broad spectrum is more convenient.
right? See, I would like to look at this in a historical perspective, meaning to say that I have been around for some time. This whole problem of patients coming in and say, doctor, I am turning dark inexplicably and skin is looking very dull. Dull skin has become a very standard thing. Almost everybody says that these days. I was wondering because back in the 90s, it was a new thing to me. During the training years, that is from 85 to 87 when I was Dr. C.R. Srinivas students, I was his first MD student actually. We didn't know this. I mean, it was not a very common complaint either. When I started corporate practice in the 90s, 91 specifically, onwards, this thing became more and more common. And then I was wondering, what is this guy talking about, or what's this lady talking about? They all sit in the office, there is no sunlight exposure. What are they talking about? Then one fine day, an idea struck me. I said, take off your shirt. The skin is fine. Only the exposure in neck and faces. It's not just tanning because they don't spend oodles of time in the sunlight. By the time they go to office, it's already early morning. They are in the office before 8 o'clock. And by the time they leave, it's almost midnight. And they're hardly ever in the sun. Many offices are in the basement, air conditioned, they have got cooling glasses. Nothing comes through. Then it occurred to me that there must be something else. I was resistant to the idea of screens, these screens, computer screens, whatever screens we expose ourselves to, being responsible for pigmentation. I was resistant to the idea for a it was simply there at the back of my mind. And one fine day, quite in about 4 or 5 years ago, I read about the opsin pathway. It is another pathway through which melanization occurs as opposed to the regular tyrosine pathway we are all very familiar with. So there is a different pathway by which infrared radiation, blue light, etc. causes pigmentation. As far as IR is concerned, there is no controversy. As students, we have read erythema ab igni, isn't it? It presents initially as erythema and then it turns brown. So on brown skin, you don't see erythema, which straight away turn brown. So women who are getting, melasma getting worse, where is the surprise? In front of the cooking fire. Or for that matter, these days, men, chefs, people who work in the kitchens, so hot and humid, stuffy environments. There are kitchens all over the place. People don't cook at home anymore. So you turn and look at all those guys who work in the petrol pumps, in the kitchens, or in the factories where you don't have the benefit of air conditioning. You're working in front of open flames, electrolysis industry, or furnaces and things. You do require IR protection. There, a good molecule to have would be ectoine. We'll talk of that later. But blue light protection is required. That is given by iron oxide, primarily, a tinted sunscreen. Not a iosin tint, but iron oxide tint. Okay, so that's all I have to say.
I think if you came from historical to modern, the next classic example was COVID. During COVID, with excessive screen usage, you saw quite a few patients having aggravation of melasma, even though they were at home. A lot of patients were complaining that they were tanned. Their skins were looking dull, as you mentioned. Obviously, there was some cumulative, but there's no evidence. So I think we should have more studies in that direction and maybe, yes,
Can
Atul.
So, uh, more than the what kind of sunscreen you should be prescribing, awareness is very important to the patient itself. They are not aware that sunscreen can make them dark also, and they have to use sunscreen. Another thing, I come from namkeen background. There are a lot of people who are making a lot of farsan in our place, lot of furnaces. So the pigmentation in those people, the furnaces are all indoors. Factory is not air conditioned, but everybody is indoors. Yet you saw a lot of pigmentation. That's where the IR also came. So it's not part of the question, but IR protection is very important.
Yeah.
I just saw the blue.
Infrared causes erythema. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
So
have all
IR is equally important in people who are near the equator and they are facing a lot of heat in northern India, working in that kind of profession. That filter is also very important. So making them aware about their own profession and choosing their own filter would be of helpful.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Infrared is important. So actually, over here is written that visible light produces erythema, which is immediate and will fade in 2 hours in one exposure. Pigmentation, if you have existing pigmentation, it darkens. It can remain darkened up to 2 weeks. That's what happens on holidays, etc. And sun holidays. And infrared does produce erythema that can last for an hour, and repeated exposure will worsen it. And pigmentation, they have not really found a definitive. We know it's photo aggravated, but what impact has yet to be established. So that was in this study.
Another observation which I have, in this high IR exposure, photo aging is more prominent than the pigmentation.
Absolutely. So now let's go to the next question, that is customizing recommendations. Skin type from oily, dry, combination sensitive, exposure to sunlight on a regular basis, even during physical activity, environment and a choice of formulation, gel, cream, spray, stick. And Dr. Maya, can you tell us a few things about your choices and customizing it to patients' requirements and choices you make for them?
See, compliance is very important when you prescribe sunscreens. For a person who already has an oily skin, if you give an oily sunscreen, they're definitely not going to use it. And also, it can worsen their acne. So, you need to use a gel sunscreen for patients with oily skin and vice versa. And definitely, areas around the eyes, we find a lot of people complaining of burning eyes, watering of the eyes following sunscreen. In such patients, it's preferable to use a stick form of sunscreen. So definitely the formulation is very important. And again, environment. Like if they go to a hot place, you have to really make sure that they're not going to sweat with your sunscreen. So again, a gel form is much better. And one with a complete spectrum is also better.
There was combining sunscreens with product. With
See,
skincare
especially for
products.
anti-aging, we don't want patients to keep layering products. Some people hate to use more than one or two products. In such individuals, you can probably have something antioxidants combined with the sunscreen during the day, especially vitamin C that we use. And sometimes we also use nicotinamide and things like that.
Dr. Malika, Dr. Maya's from the south, you're from the north. Yeah. After that, we will go back to Namkeen world. Yeah. So she's from the south, you're from the north. What is the preference? Is there any difference in the preferences of your patients up north, where you are in Chandigarh?
So she was speaking about the type of skin you have. Of course, that we cater to that part: oily, dry, acne prone, not prone, age, all those factors. We have a big constraint with weather also. We have extremes of weather. So as the weather changes, we need to change our products pretty frequently. So we tell our patients that during this time you can use something which has more silicone, which has less gel in foam. So we keep catering to the weather, which is a very important thing in North India. We have 4 weather changes, so we can't afford to give them a blanket sunscreen. So that's a little difference in climate. Age factor, all that of course comes into South North. I think this is where we are different from them.
And skin type also?
Skin type, we are fairer. We need to protect a little more vigorously. I'm not saying they don't, but here it is much more because especially the North Indian, higher the Kashmiris and all, they are very, Himachalis, they are at a height, so they are more exposed to stronger sunlight. Plus they have the snow which is reflecting it. So their sunscreens may need to be a broader range. You have to see that the spectrum is wider, it covers everything, and then that should again be gel-based or a mineral sunscreen. So we have to keep all those factors in mind when we are prescribing. So it's not very simple.
Do you really think that because the skin type in the south is more 5 beyond, that it's just not seen in them as much as it's seen?
They are not aware.
I think across the country we need sun.
We need to do it all over.
It just shows a little more on when there's a contrast.
Yeah, because when in the fair skin, that melasma is more apparent. Telangiectasia is more apparent. They have rosaceous kind of skins. All that shows up much more. It's not that it's not happening worldwide, but it's just more apparent. So you have to be more careful. That's where the tinted sunscreens come more into the picture.
Yes, Dr. Atul?
Seborrhea also. Yes.
So, just to add one more, type 5 to type 6 skin, the amount of melanin we have in our skin, we give you natural SPF of up to 50, 1.5. So, darker you are, more protected you are. This is one part. Now, among India, we have many India. I come from a background where there are no water bodies. So, unlike like Mumbai's and Kolkata's and Chennai's, our people don't like that much amount of silicone sunscreen. We like something which is more hydrating. So, any SPF which is coming in, maybe in a humectant base, not the oil kind of sunscreen, but the humectant bases are still appreciated. So, where does it leave the oil-based sunscreen? They would want something which is more, put on this. There is place for every basis. There is place for every kind of sunscreen depending upon the aging, type of skin and geography.
I would just like to add, in fact, when you were talking, Atul, I was thinking, in Bangalore, if you take Chennai, which is just like 4 hours from Bangalore, it's very easy. You have got only 2 seasons. One in which you're sweating while you are standing. And the second is one in which even you are standing, you are sweating and it's dripping onto the floor. So there are only 2 seasons. There is no problem there at all. Dr. Maya knows how to deal with that. Likewise, all. Coimbatore also in Tamil Nadu is a very different story altogether. Dr. Srinivas will address it sometime later in the session. As far as Bangalore is concerned, it is 3,600 feet above sea level, and we have got 2 clear-cut seasons, dry and moist. So from 15th of March through to September, you got good humidity. Then you will have to choose as to what type of skin you are treating: dry skin, T-zone, xerotic, oily, acne-borne, aged, middle-aged, all those things, pigmenting type, indoor, outdoor, all those considerations come in. But from the point of view of vehicle, from September to March, uh, from March to September, that is after the humidity sets in, we want a vehicle in a slightly moisturizing base, that is oil in the continuous phase. And from March to September, we want water in the continuous phase. You'd like to have a cream or a gel. Whereas September to March, when it is very dry, then we would like to have oil in the continuous phase. So in the same geography, depending on the season, we'll require different vehicles for the same ingredients. That is one aspect. Apart from this, there are other considerations which will be addressed down the line.
So what I've understood is that we need a broad spectrum sunscreen and maybe 2 types of formulations to take us through at least variation in season and climate. Would be quite comfortable and easy to do. Compliance will be good and will also make it less complicated. Otherwise, with so many variations, we may actually end up with too many, and then every sunscreen is competing for the other with more confusion. Could simplify it with good photo protection and, of course, like you said, compliance and awareness of our patients and understanding their situations and their requirements, customizing it for them. So with that, I'd like to say that I'd like to thank all of you for this wonderful panel discussion and the scientific angle you've lent to it. Atul, you wanted to say something?
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. We'll
Thank you so much, Dr. Malvika Kohli, for moderating this first session that we've had. Also, I'd like to thank our panelists, Dr. Krupa Shankar, Dr. Atul Kathad, Dr. Maya Vidamurthy, and Dr. Malika Sachdev for being there. Can we have a round of applause for all the panelists and our moderator? Up next, we have got our second session. The second session is also going to be moderated by Dr. Malvika Kohli. The session is on optimizing sunscreen in dermatology, which would include the subtopics and the types of sunscreens, sunscreen in dermatology, and aesthetics. So, ladies and gentlemen, moving forward to the next session that we have, session number 2, moderated by Dr. Malvika Kohli, and I'd like to join in for the call are the panelists Dr. Abir Saraswat, Dr. C.R. Srinivas, Dr. Rajita Ramisetti. Let me have all the panelists on board with us with our moderator, Dr. Malvika Kohli. Ladies and gentlemen, can I have a round of applause for our panelists? Over to you, Dr. Malvika.
I have a phone here. We'll have the phone with the questions, so we can all share this iPad for the questions. So, welcome, sir, and Dr. Veer and Dr. Rajita. This is going to be a tough one for me. Conduct this panel with all of you here, and happy birthday, sir. It's Dr. Srinivas sir's birthday today. Big round. So, this session is on optimizing sunscreens in dermatology. So based on all the discussions we've had. Yeah, Ashwin, you can give it. So I'm taking it onwards from where we left off with the last panel. And so I'd like to come to the point of ideal application of sunscreen. What we really want to address out here is suboptimal use of sunscreen in our patients, which we recognize, and how we can overcome this, and what would be your recommendations and what we discussed in the consensus. Here's a graphic for all of you in the audience. There's a graphic over there. So, would you like to start with all your experience? The teaspoon rule revisited. Proper amount of sunscreen application is what's on top.
So we have to first tell them as to how to apply the sunscreen. We tell them to take half a teaspoon and apply it with the finger from the teaspoon and not pour it into the hand, because nearly 50% will go in the hand when you're applying. Go on applying till almost the entire amount is finished from the spoon and not stop early. And also tell them that in a month they should be using 3 or 4 bottles. And if one bottle lasts them for 2.5 months, that means they are not using it ideally. Lastly, give the example that it is like a screen. If you have a thin muslin screen to your window, sun will enter the house. Whereas if you have a thick screen, it will not. Our idea is to protect it. So it needs to be.
Perfect. That was really simplified. Dr. Abir, your take? Evidence says that 2 to 3 hours versus up to 8-hour protection if applied well. So, are you an advocate for the 2 to 3 hour reapplication? Do you think an 8-hour protection sunscreen really will give that kind of protection? And how do you convince them to reapply?
So the beta protection is on in vitro testing and basically chromator testing, etc. It does not reflect real life, I'm pretty sure. And if you look at it, how practically it is used, if you're out of doors continuously in the sun, you'd be sweating. The 8-hour thing goes out of the window. Even the 2 to 3-hour thing goes out of the window.
Exactly.
Even a washproof or a sweat resistant sunscreen would need reapplication. If you're continuously out of doors, after an hour and a half, if you're sweating, at the most 2 to 3 hours, if not. And if it is intermittent sun exposure, which it is for many people, they are out of doors for some time, they enter a building, they come out after a couple of hours, that's where the real difficult aspect of remembering to reapply.
Right.
So just have to explain it. It has to be a habit. For women, it's easier if they have handbags, carry a sunscreen. For men, which is why I always combine sunscreen prescription with practical protection advice, carrying a scarf or wearing a hat or a mask. These days after COVID, masks are, nobody would look at you twice if you're wearing a mask, so it's not embarrassing or anything. So that's the key message, because it is hard to do it. Actually, it is hard to do it. If we've tried time ourselves, it's not easy to do. So reapplication times are correct if you are out continuously, and if you are out intermittently, then it becomes all the more important to be using other methods of sun protection as well, because half the time you're going to forget, or it's not going to be practical to carry your sunscreen or to take it out. Many people have doubts, I have dust on my face, can I reapply on top of that?
Makeup.
What if there's no place to wash my face? So there are practical difficulties. But the fact remains that you have to reapply. You have to find a way of doing it.
Physical sunscreen seems to last longer. Of the chemical sunscreen, some are like fuel which can regenerate. They go to a higher state and then they come back and once again start acting. But over a period of time, it gets used up. So it is something like a fuel used up by the vehicle. The higher you go, intense you go, the more the sunlight, the more the sunscreen is likely to decay and become less effective. So it depends on as Abhi rightly said, it depends on how much amount of exposure, what sort of exposure they have. So that is the important thing. And regarding sweat, we require good substantivity, that is the ability to withstand moisture.
So then, in certain patients who are on the field all day,
Certain patients,
who are on the field all day and are in and out of offices and cars and traveling all the time, or on the road, you think this 8-hour, the promise of 8 hours protection
No,
and water resistant for more than 2 to 3 hours,
That is the, we
Is
should
that a
go
tall
by that.
promise?
So maybe we can play about maybe 3 hours, 4 hours, we can say you can apply, because very difficult practically to apply every 2 hours.
There are some sprays now. They say you can spray it.
Still, it may not be so easy, so maybe we may compromise, but not 8 hours. So 3 to 4 times is what should make it little practical to apply it. And important thing is, they should not wash or apply, except when used for parthenium. If used for parthenium, the parthenium dust will get trapped if you apply it. The sunscreen, because in parthenium, the sunscreen is not only a sunscreen, but it's also a barrier against parthenium. It will trap the antigens, and if you apply the antigen over it, the sunscreen over it, it becomes more. So in parthenium, we ask them to wash and reapply. For other conditions, they should apply just as it is. When there is a physical sunscreen, it will start acting immediately. But if it is a chemical sunscreen predominantly, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to start acting, especially if they wash their face.
Yes,
We
Dr.
did
Rajika.
discuss this. There's a study that shows that if you apply sunscreen about 20 to 30 minutes before going out and then reapply immediately or 2 minutes before going out again, so 2 applications with a gap of about 20 to 30 minutes, then the protection, and allow both layers to dry up reasonably, don't immediately go out, then 4 to 5 hours is a reasonable expectation. That it's not easy, again, it's not easy to do. You'll be putting a fairly thick film, but if you do that, it does prolong the.
Dr. Malvika, in fact, that is the advice that I give to many of my patients who wear makeup, that apply a base layer and then reapply, and then the makeup typically has ferric oxide. So, and that is not going to get degenerated, so being the physical one. Second thing, regarding the spray and the stick formulations for reapplication, there also the quantity matters. So if you have to spray that much, then whatever makeup is there is going to get washed away. So, and for the stick thing, the AID for some reason has decided that if you do firm pressure, 5 strokes each way, that's 10 strokes, then you might get somewhere close to what you require. But then when you're talking about spray, what speed, what pressure, we have no way of quantifying this. We don't know how long. So that means once little stick should be used up in 2 weeks or so, and I'm sure nobody ever does that. So we'll have to tell our patients that the most practical thing, if somebody is getting into a car, I tell them to keep one of those high UPF shrugs, keep it in the car, just wear it, zip it up, and then drive. It's less expensive, it doesn't take much time, and that way the Koreans and the Far East people have mastered it. You have these kind of shrugs which will zip up right till your nose, and then there's a thing there that covers till here. So they are very practical about this.
I don't see Indians doing that.
Even when you use the spray, you're supposed to spread it with the finger.
Finger.
Just spray alone
Yes,
is not
you will
enough.
have to spread it. So anyway, your makeup is going to get melted off.
So spray on the face, not so great an idea. What
The large areas on the back and all, I
Body
think
is
it makes
fine.
it easy.
and would you say that when you're choosing a sunscreen, can you go to the next question, please? This one, no? Yeah. What to look for in a sunscreen, since we are on this whole amount, since we've covered the quantity, SPF 50, 60, 70, 80, 100, is it really needed? PA rating, boot star rating, or the visible light IR we covered. Antioxidants, are they really of value? And how much would you place, say if you had to debate between aesthetic appeal versus the real protection coming from the SPF and filters, what would you go for? Because aesthetic appeal gives you compliance. Lots of questions in one.
No, there are lots of questions. So the SPF numbers are important to an extent because of the under application that most people do and the difficulty of applying 2 milligrams per centimeter square in Indian conditions especially. So the higher SPF, probably up to maybe 60, 70 may make sense, because if you apply and it goes down logarithmically, it doesn't go down linearly. So if you apply half, your protection drops by 1/4. So the higher SPFs sound ridiculous on paper, but practically for use they do make sense, because it's very hard to apply the correct amount on which the SPF number was arrived at. And of course the PA rating is for UVA protection, and if you're really bothered about photo aging, etc., you should have a sunscreen that has a good PA rating. Boots is the UK version of the star rating, which takes care, if properly adhered to, then it gives you evidence that there's some standardized testing. I'm not sure how much Indian market these testings are done to the standards that they are done abroad. No, I'm not sure of. And
Added
visible light
antioxidant.
protection is very, very important,
Yeah.
which is, and this is the reason why I think two reasons are inadequate application, and the other reason is lack of visible light protection, which leads to tanning in spite of seemingly adequate sunscreen use, and less effect of your depigmenting therapies compared to what you would expect. Visible light, increasingly important to understand that it causes tanning, it causes acne. And if you have a photosensitive dermatosis, or you are very particular about your complexion, then you better worry about visible light as well. So the window glass cutting out UVB is not going to cut it. Visible light is still getting through, and even if the LED screens or these LED lights are not emitting UV, they are certainly emitting very powerful visible light with a lot of blue light as well, which is high energy. Visible light protection, and again, it's the most difficult of all. You need the opaque sunscreen, you need iron oxide to cut out the visible light, and otherwise, practically, the clothing, your sunglasses, your masks, hats, everything.
Available for the monitors.
Yes,
They can
yes.
put
Blue
the blue
glasses
screen on
also.
that, and
Blue
that will
glasses.
also cut the
Yeah.
exposure of blue light.
Dr. Rajita, you were talking about tinted sunscreens and makeup. Now, what do we do for visible light and infrared and blue light for our male patients?
Whether it's a male or a female, visible light makes no
tinted.
Yeah,
Tinted.
visible light makes no distinction. So unless somebody is using either a opaque zinc oxide, which very few men or women are ready, or if you're not using a ferric oxide, a tinted one, then visible light protection is not going to be available.
So then would you say for a male, a broad spectrum sunscreen is a good idea?
For
Good, good physical filters.
broad spectrum sunscreen is a much better idea.
That we decided.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, in a woman, she still has
The makeup option, the tint
makeup
option.
and the tinted sunscreen option. So in a male, how do we overcome this difficulty? Should we give a broad spectrum sunscreen, noting that the physical filters should be more predominant?
That's the most practical option, but I think as men get to a point where they're accepting, because I have so many male patients who are ready for a tinted sunscreen if it color matches, which brings us to the point of the choices we have, because we all have so many skin colors right in this room. So unless the Indian pharma comes out with tints like foundations, we will not have perfect matches.
So,
And
Dr.
adding
Ashwini,
little amount of antioxidants, that also offers protection against a wide range of light.
So antioxidants are of value. And so we go to the next question out here, which is the filter choice. We're going ahead now, Dr. Abhi. So filter choice, organic versus inorganic versus hybrid. What drives your preference? And this was a question I wanted Dr. Rajita to ask you, that since you talked about the tinted and we talked about male and female, do nanoparticles approve acceptance?
Nanoparticles make these physical sunscreens much more cosmetically elegant, so they are acceptable
And
compared to the
therefore-
opaque ones. But then there is the whole other set of how absorption happens, and does it matter? At this point, we've decided that it doesn't matter. The absorption is not really harmful.
So I think in our consensus, we had another half an hour, 45-minute debate on nanoparticles. And Dr. Abir, you had a strong opinion on it.
We have to accept the fact that this is cosmetic industry is not driven by science. Science follows sometimes. The harms of the sunscreens that we talk about today, the endocrine harms, the environmental harms, and the real reason why we use sunscreen. And were all discovered, see, a couple of decades after, or 3 or 4 decades after sunscreen use became widespread. You have to accept the fact that the final word has not been said. There are contradictory studies on particles being covered from the serum, various internal organs. You apply it regularly enough. Whether they are doing anything to us or not, so far it seems okay. But we have to be concerned about applying such fine particles on our skin. So far, reassuringly, it seems okay. We have to keep our mind open on that. And if we really want visible light protection, and for specific times of the year, for example, the vacation scenario, I would always go for non-nanos. You're going to stay out for hours. And that's the one that works. No, that's the one. And I mean, you can wipe it off. You take your Insta photos and reapply, I guess. Or correct it digitally later on before you post it online.
Filter. The other type of filters.
Anil Ganju may sing, Kal kya hoga kisko pata. Means what it is going to do tomorrow, we are not too sure. As of now, they say that there is not much evidence of it doing great deal of harm. So that is a legal way of putting it, you know.
I think if you have a good camera like Dr. Anil's, then you can have an opaque sunscreen with a great filter in your camera and get the best pics. But yeah, jokes apart, I think what I'd like from all three of you is a bit on photosensitive dermatosis. What would be your go-to sunscreen and photoprotective plan for lupus patients, PMLE, drug-induced photosensitivity? Again, would it be a broad spectrum or would you be more preferable towards physical?
So it depends to a large extent on the severity of the disease and the potential harms of not doing good photoprotection. So people who have like cancerous conditions like XP or DNA instability disorders, or even SLE, which can have serious consequences on systemic health and life itself, there I would insist on a sunscreen that contains a physical sunscreen as well, in addition to this, and on other regular use and protection as well. But in other conditions like polymorphic light eruption, etc., we may be able to get away with a broad spectrum sunscreen, which will contain a certain amount of organic sunscreen as well, because you won't get the high numbers with just chemical sunscreen. Otherwise, it will become just too gooey and you won't be able to. So, a good broad spectrum sunscreen for all, and for the more serious photodermatosis, extra dose of opaque filter, higher concentration of those, that they get more comprehensive visible light as well. Because theoretically we know, okay, so probably UVB causes PMLE, and in Parthenium probably some spectrums are more, but practically what do you do about it? You have a broad spectrum sunscreen solves those.
That was very simplified and clear.
Especially in diseases like DLE, XP and all, UVB is the main cause. Whereas in PMLE, across all spectrum it can occur. UVA, UVB, visible, all these can be there. In case of drug, it is mostly UVA which we need. But in the end, we require a protection against all those rays. I would agree that we go for a combined sunscreen which has got both physical, organic and inorganic applying in.
So clearly we can see that all of us don't have any bias against the chemical sunscreens, because there has been a lot of talk about chemical sunscreens, and in the next panel we'll talk about the effects. But what I'm saying here is that we do understand that physical and chemical actually are two brothers, and they do complement each other. We can vary the proportion depending on the condition in which we want to use. And the last question would be on pigmentary disorders. Again, what would be it for you? A broad spectrum, a combination, broad spectrum combination sunscreen, physical, tinted, of course, we've discussed. The tinted applies here too, but what would it be for you, Rajita, in pigmentary conditions?
Ideally, a broad spectrum tinted one that protects against from UV to IR would be ideal with the antioxidant thrown in.
Your favored filters?
So the Tinosorb S, Tinosorb M would have the highest critical wavelength, along with ideally a non-nano-sized physical protection and ferric oxide. That would be the perfect one. Now, how to make it cosmetically elegant, the pharma people will have to figure out.
Okay. back to them. Okay. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you for your very erudite insights and simplifying and decoding so many facts about sunscreens. Thank you. Take a photograph. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So now we move to the third
Sure.
panel. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Dr. Malvika for holding on to the session number 2. And that was a great doctor. And the next up, we have the second and the third session, right? So the third session is also going to be moderated by Dr. Malvika. And along with that, we have our panelists. And I'm going to list down the panelists. Please welcome on stage and join us to share your words of wisdom for the third session. Let me call upon stage the panelists for the third session, Dr. Anil Ganju, Dr. Geeta Patel, and Dr. Indra Padar. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have our panelists for the third session. Give a round of applause for Dr. Anil Ganju, Dr. Geeta Patel, and Dr. Indra Padar. Will be moderated by Dr. Malvika Kohli. The third session is on balancing efficacy and safety. Sunscreen in special population. The subtopics would be sunscreen in special population and potential risks and considerations of sunscreen use. Over to you, Dr. Malvika.
So, sorry, once again, you've got to hear my voice, but this is the last panel, and it's wonderful to have all three of you here. And I would like to start with this slide, which is on procedures. One on procedures. Yeah. So, all of you are doing procedures, both of you especially, and of course you do your peels. So, there are recommendations on peri-procedural skincare for energy-based dermatologic procedures right on top. This is the one, the recommendations on peri-procedural skincare. So, how do you adjust your peri, and post-procedure advice? And what for you in a sunscreen matters the most when you're choosing a sunscreen for your, especially microneedling, devices, lasers? What matters the most? The SPF, the PA, a soothing base, tinted, matte? What would it be? So there are two parts to it. Your procedural advice, pre, post, and intra, and the properties of a sunscreen when you're choosing one.
So when you are preparing for the procedure, like you are priming your patient for that matter, and you're giving something to lighten the pigment also so that you don't have post-procedural complications like PIH, etc. At that time, you may use a broad spectrum sunscreen, because now I would call it a syndromic approach. Everybody is saying broad spectrum sunscreen, but otherwise there's a very huge science behind, understanding what wavelength causes which disease. I was going through, the pathophysiology and pathology of each of the photodermatoses. They have typical wavelengths, which induce which disease. So if you know that, then it would become easier to decide which sunscreen for which patient. But then now we are into a syndromic approach kind of a thing. We give broad spectrum sunscreen for everything, unless there are special situations. So when I am preparing my patient, I have no problem. My skin is intact. There's no sensitivity. I am priming my patient. So I would use a broad spectrum sunscreen before the procedure. But once I have done my procedure, so then we are in a situation where we may have a disrupted barrier, a sensitive skin. Then I would preferably move on to a mineral sunscreen where chemicals could cause irritation, sensitization, etc. So, and I would want a water-based, light sunscreen which does not irritate the skin and is heavy on the skin.
I agree with Dr. Ganju here. So over a period of time, I've learned to give my patient two sets of sunscreens. One is a broad spectrum, which you can use generally. But when it is like an invasive procedure where I disrupt the skin's barrier, something like microneedling RF, then I give a physical sunscreen with a soothing base, probably a repair cream with this SPF. And if it's a female, then they usually prefer a tinted base. So
But would you use a tinted base immediate post-procedure?
no, not immediate, just a plain physical sunscreen with a soothing base.
How about antioxidant in it?
It could be added, but
It may add to the cost, right? As it is,
yes.
they are doing the procedure, there's a cost
so
involved.
it depends if the
and-
patient can afford it
and
or
wishes.
if it is really required.
Or is really required, or maybe a sensitive skin.
I think post procedure you have to be very simple and minimalistic.
I think so.
Try
Less
to
than
be
5.
own a mineral skin, but then a little bit of add-ons like hyaluronic acid is a very good add-on.
Yeah.
Either applied separately or if you have a sunscreen that contains something like hyaluronic acid. Sometimes epidermal growth factors,
Yes.
they can help, rapid healing that can be given separately or can be in combination. So these simple add-ons may be added, but most of the things preferably avoided post-procedure because of the barrier disruption.
So if a patient could afford and is doing a high-end procedure, then your sunscreen would have zinc oxide, it would have growth factors, it could have sodium hyaluronate, right? And it could have maybe a nice soothing sort of base, more water-based, right? Along with a topical antibiotic cream. This is what you could give very simplistically. And every time they do the same procedure, normally we do 3 to 4 sessions, you would start this right after the procedure, give it for 5 to 7 days, and then they go back to their skincare routine. And they would stop their actives 2 days before and switch to switch to this routine after the procedure. This is how the sequence would go, right? Okay. Would you follow the same for peels?
Yes,
Because you do
similar.
a-
Just a moisturizer in the post-procedure section. I usually add a separate moisturizer, apart from adding a sunscreen which has a moisturizing base. So maybe a separate moisturizer can get. Otherwise, everything has been.
Could it be moisturizer, zinc-based physical sunscreen? Separate, 2 products
Yeah,
is
usually
also an
separately
option.
because I think the moisturizer sunscreen combinations, I think they're good, but I'm not exactly sure that both of them have their properties intact. We have multiple products where there is a moisturizer and a sunscreen which is combined. I think somehow the SPF is lower in those products. So basically what it does is it eases the application. Like in rosacea patients, I usually prefer them. But in post-procedure patient, where the sunscreen component is very much important, I think what I do is a moisturizer and a physical sunscreen separately.
That's what I thought.
I'm happy he brought out this. We as scientists need to understand the importance of each of the ingredients. So when you put them together, there's always a possibility that you may not be getting the best of each. So it is what you actually require as a scientist, what you have learned, and applying that science to your patient is important. So sometimes a sunscreen with so many ingredients is not actually, very helpful.
Exactly, especially in pigmentary conditions. And during procedures in pigmentary conditions, I think separating the moisture.
And just to get out of context, like a very commonly used medication like antihistamines with Montelukast. Like this combination is available nowhere in the world because you have to prescribe Montelukast separately and antihistamine separately. But only in India we have this kind of combination. So I think similar here also. So I think better to use separate.
Sure. So let's move to the next slide, which is on environmental hormonal safety of chemical filters. So are we as dermatologists in India, are we really concerned about hormonal disruption? Is it something that we give thought to when we prescribe? Have we all moved away from oxybenzone? Are we all, or are we're concerned, we know, but we still write it and or we choose it, like in an acne patient, you will not use it. Do we make informed choices like this, Dr. Geeta? What's your
So
thought
especially
process?
for pregnant females,
Yeah.
I am very careful about not prescribing a sunscreen which has the notable two ingredients, which is this oxybenzone and the octinoxate,
Yeah.
because I want to be really careful
Yeah.
in that case. And most of the time, I think I am careful in not prescribing a sunscreen which has endocrine disruptors.
Even so, in a case of acne, in a case of
Yes.
specifically any
Yes.
other conditions in which you'd be aware of this environmental issue?
Most of the time, I make sure I don't write a sunscreen which has the endocrine disruptors.
Okay, so
You
you
know, I
moved
think,
away.
I think this concept is seeping in, and most of the pharma companies are also now working on sunscreens where they have removed these ingredients. And the concept of endocrine disrupting chemicals
EDC, yes.
is brewing up. Most of us now know, and we've been doing sunscreen, so I know. But then I thought, how many of the Indians would be knowing when I saw this question? So I went to the Google, and I found out that they did a survey, and most of the Indian dermatologists know about this thing.
Wonderful.
And it's not only acne, it's not only pregnant women, it's also hirsutism, it's all kinds of, they induce the androgens, and they can cause hyperandrogenic, they can aggravate hyperandrogenic states.
They can, right? But here's this study, and in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology, where they study the systemic absorption of benzophenone and the other cinemates and all of these written over here, that whole body topical application, and they study the reproductive hormone levels, and they found that the FSH and LH were actually unchanged. So maybe, there is, I guess it depends on how much you use, prolonged usage. So maybe we have to be careful, but we don't have to be too worried.
We have to be aware, at least.
Exactly.
All of us
Exactly.
have to know that something like this is around, and we shouldn't be caught unawares that something like this is happening and we don't know about it.
Yeah, and we have a choice to write something. If we don't have a choice.
Sure. So let's go to vitamin D. All our patients are always concerned about vitamin D, then about whether they should use it on their children or not. So here is in JAD, there was a use of topical sunscreen for the evaluation of regional synthesis of D3. And what they found was that legs and trunk contribute twice as much as head and neck and arms towards vitamin D synthesis, which means that if you protect your face and neck, but your limbs don't have sunscreen, you are going to synthesize D. And they say that the D that is synthesized from the sun is retained in the body much more than the D that you supplement, which you take all those sachets and tablets. And they found that when the trunk and legs are exposed, the amount of D you synthesize, if quantified it as 11.2 and 13.7 nanogram per ml, is more than head and neck. Head and neck synthesize 5.8 and 4.5 nanogram per ml for the arms. That means that if you're protecting your face, and how many of us use sunscreen on a day-to-day basis on our arms and legs? So if you're hardly, right? So if you're going to protect the head and face where all the problems neck happen, and you expose your arms and legs, you're going to get your D, you're not going to get affected by sunscreen usage, and cover the body for specific times and situations where you don't want to get burnt or tanned. Would that be okay?
This doesn't apply to our kind of situation. We are not exposing our rest of the body most of the time. The people in the West go to
No, but the youngsters
beach
today
or-
are.
No.
They are wearing different clothing.
Yeah, but it's not a general trend. Like very small proportion of the population, I think, exposes legs and arms and the whole body. In the West, they go to the beaches, they take sun baths. That's okay. But for us, it's only the face and the neck. And probably that's why most of the Indians are vitamin D deficient. This study is not from India. We are vitamin D deficient. But sunscreens making a difference in vitamin D levels, most likely.
So how many of us are completely sun-blocked all through the day? We even as dermatologists, I'm sure all of us don't keep on applying and reapplying every 2 hours. So I think there's enough vitamin D3 production going on, and there's this paper which, as you've rightly said, it says it does not make any difference. And there was this conference in Ahmedabad where all the orthopedicians were hitting out at dermats because they believe we are the ones who are leading to this.
Causing osteoporosis.
Yeah. Okay. In fact, I want to know how all four of us with these harsh lights, have you all forgot our sunscreen on? I do.
I think as everybody has summed up, if I can sum up, the clear message is that there is no, there is absolutely no link between sunscreen use and vitamin D synthesis. And additionally, the vitamin D synthesis rate is also not uniform. Like in a child, vitamin D synthesis is much more. Like a middle-aged man will not have the same rate of synthesis as a pediatric, like for everything in our body. So I don't think it's absolutely there is no link the amount of vitamin D in our body and
It is something like biotin being so important for hair growth. You know, biotin is left, right, and center. Everybody before he comes to you for hair loss has had lots of biotin. So otherwise, studies show it's not for a healthy. They say for a healthy individual, it doesn't really make it.
So we should use sunscreen, we should protect and check our D3s every 6 months and supplement if required and expose our arms and legs 2-3 times a week, there's no problem. We'll get our D as well, okay, and some tan. So pediatrics, let's go to pediatrics. From what age do you start? Which are your filters and formulations that you prefer? And do you prefer lotions? Or do you like, do you ever use sprays in children? After a certain age, say maybe after 8 or 10, if they swim, they face sports.
So there's enough evidence to suggest that even the in the spray, they are inhaled. They can have a so I am not a big fan of sprays, but then it does make the application of body, sunscreen protection easier. So as long as it's not inhaled, parent is careful, then it's fine. As a rule, I don't generally prefer my pediatric population to be sunblocked unless they have a photosensitive disorder or they're going to be in the sun or sun for long hours or
I think taking it, to the pediatric population and saying that you have to necessarily apply sunscreens after 6 months, after which it is allowed, is to take it far for at least our kind of population. I never prescribe a sunscreen for a child unless it is specifically required, for example. Or then the parent is very concerned that we are going for a beach holiday and we want to child, or if the child is in sun for some outdoor activity a long time, he is tanning or something. Otherwise, never.
So from pediatrics, though it's not written here, it just occurred to me right now. Let's go to the preteens and teens. Because of the social media influence, they're asking for sunscreen. They don't want to be tan. They want to look like, Indians want to look like Koreans. Want to be all one-toned, even-toned. So then what do you do? Then do you suggest that they wear sunscreen to school also, during school games also? Holidays we understand. What is your take? Or how do you handle a preteen or a teen?
nowadays, like the question, adolescents basically. So I usually prescribe a physical sunscreen just before going to school. Like
On face and neck or body also?
and if
Not
we say
required.
nobody will apply, so usual application of a physical sunscreen. Nowadays I have started prescribing physical sunscreen much more often because I think it's better, much better.
Agreed.
So I think that way there is no harm. They can just apply it, and of course in a holiday season, but that's a limited time.
Yeah.
But for usual use, it's going before going to school, application of.
if they insist or ask, it's better that we recommend a sunscreen instead. Otherwise, they'll go online and they will buy whatever is available and land up.
It's better to address the issue than skirt the issue is what I would say. Especially since we have such a wide range of sunscreen and patients like it when you're aware of what are the trends. If you try to skirt the issue, then they feel, oh, this doctor's not very in with it and doesn't understand. Maybe her choice of moisturizer also won't be good. They tend to, lose interest in you. So it's good to be in with it and give them the right products and sound advice.
Basically, like it's better that patients know from us,
exactly.
rather than knowing themselves from the social media.
Yeah, than the Google, yeah. So pregnancy, I think we discussed. Any more points we want to put on pregnancy? And what is your take on nanoparticle safety? What's your take on safety? What do you think is there any issue with safety?
Safety, of course. We've already discussed the oxybenzone and cinemates. They have a problem. We also discussed nanoparticles. I tried to look into literature, but then they found that in most of the situations, the compounds, the zinc oxide or the iron oxide, they have not been found to be at a higher level in the system. It is only the zinc atom which may be penetrating if it's a nanoparticle. And smaller the particle, the more likely it is to penetrate. But then, having said that, they have found that the levels are not high enough to cause any damage. They have not detected any damage as such. So as on now, I think we are okay and safe with nanoparticles.
Yes, that's this over here, the Australian government, the Department of Health, because Australia is so big on sunscreen. They've shown that the titanium dioxide nor zinc oxide nanoparticles are likely to cause harm, as you said. There may be some absorption, but there's nothing really documented. The toxicity is not an issue.
Inhaled, or if there is a lot of skin barrier dysfunction, like full atopic dermatitis, where it is absorbed. Otherwise, zinc oxide and titanium dioxide won't absorb.
I think Geeta brings out an important point of conversation. The sprays are in these. I
The
think we
aerosols, yeah.
should be careful about the sprays. We should advise our patients not try to avoid them around. Avoiding.
Because you mentioned Australia, I think we're all aware of the report where many big branded sunscreens didn't actually have that SPF which was mentioned. Strict regulation is also very important. Because recently there was this survey in Australia, because they are very high on, because of the skin cancer, they found that almost 80% of products, including those of big brands, they didn't have actually that SPF which was mentioned.
What they label is not what they
So
claim
I
is
think
not actually.
if you have this kind of problem in Australia, which is so much stricter regulations, it's really worrying that what actually have in India. It's very. I think regular assessment of this is also very important from the company point of view, that this is
Constant checks.
Yes,
and
at least
regulate.
after some time, maybe.
This is a lacuna. This is a great lacuna.
We have so many sunscreens from so many different companies. Some are so cheap.
So with this, I think you want to say anything? With this, I think we've come to the end of this panel discussion, but I think the message is clear that we are conscious about the environment, the safety, as well as benefits of sunscreen, and where we could work further and maybe have a better regulatory board and constant checks on sunscreens to ensure that they are delivering what they promise, so that our patients get the best and safest photo protection through sunscreen usage. And I think with that, our consensus also said the same, and we come to the end of this panel. Thank you so much for those great insights.
Thank you so much, doctors. Thank you so much, Dr. Malika, for presenting us and being here with us throughout this hour. Give it up for all our panelists, ladies and gentlemen, for presenting this wonderful session on sunscreen use, sunscreen effectiveness for all of us. We appreciate, and the next up we have the follow-up from all the panelists, and we're going to be presenting our token of love, our memento to all the people who graced us in this wonderful, wonderful event today at the ISF. All right, to present the memento, please can we have you all settle down, and let's get the chairs removed from the stage. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. This is the PRISM ISF. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's move forward to the next and probably the last segment that we have today. I'd like to call upon stage our panelist to be presented with the token of love, with the memento from the ISF, for which I'd like to call upon stage Dr. Sai Prasad Patel, Dr. Dheeraj Doot, Dr. Ashwin Balasubramaniam, and Dr. Sheila Gaikwad to present the memento. Can we have our presenters on stage with us? Give it up for Dr. Sai Prasad Patel, Dr. Dheeraj Doot, Dr. Ashwin Balasubramaniam and Dr. Sheila Gaikwad to present the Momento to our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. And we are here with our panelist. This is all your efforts and you deserve a lot more. But to begin with, we have all right, ladies and gentlemen, the first panelist to be awarded with the Memento is Dr. Malvika Kohli. Give it up for Dr. Malvika Kohli. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not stop clapping. Can we have the continuous round of applause? Congratulations, Dr. Malvika Kohli. Up next, we'd like to call upon stage Dr. C.R. Srinivas. Give it up for Dr. C.R. Srinivas, ladies and gentlemen. And we'd like to present the token of love, our memento, to a panelist. Thank you so much, Dr. C.R., for gracing us with your presence. Up next, we have Dr. Abir Saraswat. Give it up for Dr. Abir for gracing us here at the ISF. We'd like to present the memento. All right, up next, joining in, we have Dr. Atul Kathed with us. Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep clapping and make it loud. Congratulations, Dr. Atul. Joining in the panel, we have Dr. Geeta Patel. Calling up next, Dr. Anil Ganju here on stage, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for Dr. Anil. Presenting the memento from ISF. Up next, invite on stage Dr. Indrashis Padar. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Indrashis. Let's have a round of applause. Thank you so much, Doctor. Congratulations. Moving forward, next we have Dr. D.S. Krupa Shankar. Can we have on stage Dr. D.S. Krupa Shankar to receive the memento? Congratulations, Dr. D.S. Calling up next on stage is Dr. Malika Sachadeva. Let's have a round of applause for Dr. Malika Sachadeva. Congratulations and thank you so much, Doctor, for gracing us with your presence here today at the ISF. Up next, joining in, we have Dr. Maya Vidimurthy. Give it up for Dr. Maya Vidimurthy here on stage, presenting the memento from the board of ISF. All right, presenting up next is, let me call on stage Dr. Rajita Damisetti. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Rajita Damisetti. Congratulations, Doctor, and thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have all our panelists, all our doctors, and all our awardees here today with us for the group photo op. Let's have a round of applause for all our doctors, all our healthcare practitioners for presenting us with such a venture. And I hope and we congratulate that we are moving forward to a greater future with the innovations of skincare, healthcare, and so much more. These are the contributors for a healthy India, for a healthy skin for all Indians, all type, and forever younger youth. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Prism ISF Concesses launch shaping India's sunscreen science. Can we just show our mementos here on top, doctors? That's beautiful. Give a cheers. All smiles. Beautiful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much and congratulations, and thank you for presenting us with your grace. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now I'd like to call upon stage Dr. Ashwin Bala Subramaniam for presenting the vote of thanks here at the ISF. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Dr. Ashwin Bala Subramaniam. Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Very good afternoon, everyone. So, really an honor to give the vote of thanks on such a special occasion. I'm Dr. Ashwin Balasubramanian, and on behalf of the organizing committee, I want to share my heartfelt gratitude towards the members of the Indian Sunscreen Forum. Special thanks to Dr. Malvika Kohli ma'am. Ma'am, you led the consensus from conception to publication and today the launch with constant commitment and clarity. So thank you for that, ma'am. I would also like to thank Dr. C.R. Srinivas sir, Dr. Abir Saraswat sir, Dr. Anil Ganju sir, Dr. Atul Kated sir, Dr. Geeta Patel ma'am, Dr. Indrashish Podar sir, Dr. D.S. Krupa Shankar sir, Dr. Maya Vedamurthy ma'am, Dr. Malika Sajdev ma'am, Dr. Rajita Damisetti ma'am, Dr. Ranita Rajan ma'am, Dr. Rajat Kandhari sir, Dr. Sanjeev Varangavat. Thank you so much for sharing your evidence, your insights, and your practical experience that helped us make this consensus robust, comprehensive, and clinically relevant. And I would also like to thank the members of the audience today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your participation and your enthusiasm. And thank you for your commitment to keep maintaining the standards of care in dermatology. And finally, I would like to thank my organizing team for your behind-the-scenes dedication. Your efforts, made this happen, made this event be a seamless event, informative and an inspiring event. Thank you so much. And as we come towards the conclusion, I would like to remind every one of us that this consensus publication is not an end point, but it's the beginning. So it's the beginning of our commitment towards continuous education, research, and patient-centric photo protection under India's year-round sun. So with this, I would like to declare this session closed. Thank you very much, everyone. Before we wrap it up completely, I would like to share something that makes this special occasion even more special. So today is Dr. C.R. Srinivas's birthday. And we would like to celebrate this occasion with everyone. So can we have the cake on the stage, please? And I would like to invite Dr. C.R. Srinivas on stage and as well as everyone else. today's sir's 70th birthday, and it's something that's really special.
अपना दिमाग में जो चाहेगा वो दूसरों से कराएगा.
अतुल कहाँ से? अब ये पता चल गया कि अतुल